In this video, I'm going to talk about a mostly forgotten and underrated technology from the ancient days of the 2000s and 2010s that could boost FPS in certain games without needing to upgrade to a stronger GPU. Also back then you didn't have to sell your kidney to buy a GPU, but let's continue. It's called a multi-GPU setup. For Nvidia, it was known as SLI, while AMD used the term crossfire. The basic idea was alternating frame rendering. If you had two GPUs, which was the most common setup, though 3-way and even 4-way configurations existed, the GPUs would take turns rendering frames. GPU 0. Remember, in PC terms, counting starts at 0, so this is the main GPU or the first GPU, would handle odd numbered frames, so 1, 3, 5 and so on, while GPU 1 would take care of even numbers, so the 2, 4, 6, etc. These frames would then be combined into a single output. In theory, this could double your FPS, but in reality things weren't quite that simple, depending on the games and settings. We will get into that. Oh, and the GPU had to be connected with the bridge connector called SLI bridge or crossfire bridge respectively. To run SLI or crossfire, you needed two GPUs of the same type and generation, unless you were on AMD, which allowed some mixing with refreshed models. Oh, and also the motherboard had to support the feature. Most people used high-end cards to get performance that could rival or beat the best single GPU option. In fact, some flagship cards were just two GPUs crammed into one board, like the GTX 690, Titan Z, HD 7990, or the R9 295X. Starting in the mid-2010s, multi-GPU support began to fade. Developers stopped supporting it, and it only a limited number of games ever did. Though this included big names like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty, The Witcher. SLI generally saw better support than Crossfire, so Nvidia users had a wider range of compatible titles. You typically wouldn't want to crossfire or SLI low-end cards, since you'd often get better performance and save money by just buying a stronger single card. For my test though, I used the HD 7770 and the R7 250X, which is basically a refresh of the 7770, with a few minor differences like VRAM amount and clocks. You can check out my video on how VRAM affects performance. Getting it to work wasn't exactly plug and play. First, I needed a crossfire bridge to connect the two cards and made sure my motherboard supported the feature. Newer AMD cards, like the RX 400 and 500 series, no longer required the bridge, as all the communication was done over the motherboard. Second, I had to find the right driver. Here I had some trial and error, and by the help of ChatGPT I discovered that the last working driver was from the 16 point something series. So starting with the 17 point something drivers, AMD dropped the support. So this helped. Third, I had to set up the one GPU as GPU 0, otherwise the system would crash, likely due to VRAM mismatch. Finally, I needed some games to test. I went with The Witcher 3, Dirt 3, Metro 2033 Redux and Total War Rome 2. The results, well, let's just say they were mixed. Let's see the result, and we will start off with Dirt 3, and when the game actually managed to run, it was on average 14% faster compared to using just one GPU, so an additional 10 to 12 FPS. Metro 2033 Redux saw a reduction of around 30%, or in other words, it lost 8 frames, which was very odd, but this could be attributed to drivers or DirectX version. Rome 2 Total War did get 20 FPS more, so it went from 64ish to 84, which results to a 33% improvement, but the biggest one was in The Witcher 3, which went from 23 FPS to 40 FPS, thus making the game actually playable. That's a 74% increase, but it had some weird issues with faraway object. Hopefully you can see it. Running Crossfire wasn't exactly smooth sailing. Dirt 3 in particular had a bad habit of crashing, making it one of the less enjoyable experiences. The Witcher 3 also had its quirks, so yeah, maybe the lesson here is to steer clear of the third game in any series when using Crossfire. All jokes aside, there are multiple variables that could affect this, as mentioned earlier: drivers, using a newer operating system, newer hardware. Because if you watch older videos about this, there weren't as much issues as I experienced. Maybe it's something that I overlooked, that I don't know about, something that was lost to the time or to the depths of Reddit, which I didn't check out.
But gaming, you should have used driver X for game Y.
Yeah, well, I have a life, and this is just a little something I do for fun. Plus, nobody actually cares about multi-GPU setups. By the way, one fun fact that you totally don't need to know, but hopefully it will stuck in your brain and keep valuable space instead of things that you actually need to know and remember. So, the last GPU that supported SLI was the RTX 3090 and the Ti variant. Anyway, if you came so far, please consider dropping a like, or maybe share your experience with multi-GPU systems if you had any. Share the video with your friends and others, and I will see you all on the battlefields. Gaming Teacher out.